Today I'm going to analyze how True Detective Season 1 uses visual motifs, camera angles, and lighting to illustrate its pessimistic and nihilistic philosophy. So let's start by defining these terms. Pessimism and nihilism tend to go hand in hand. The former is a school of thought that argues that the world is as bad as it can be and existence is inherently evil. The human condition is tragic because we are both part of nature and separate from it. We are a slave to the natural phenomenon of the world, which includes death, but alone in that we're the only living creatures aware of it. Nihilism follows suit in stating that human values are baseless, that life is meaningless, and truth impossible to attain or access. The show utilizes Detective Rust Cole as a mouthpiece of this philosophy and combines it with elements from the Southern Gothic genre. Southern Gothic was often set deep within the US South and had elements of witchcraft, voodoo, and inexplicable horror. The show's most obvious link to the genre is with the references of Caracosa and the Yellow King, both derived from Southern Gothic stories and later echoed by the king of cosmic horror, H.P. Lovecraft, in his work. Writer Nick Pizzolatto combines these two elements to create a show that explores the dark side of humanity and ultimately the primal and inexplicable nature of evil in the world. The setting of True Detective's first season is one of thick swamp and forest set against a crumbling human infrastructure. This visually illustrates the futility of man against nature and the inevitability of its all-consuming maw. Director Cary Fukunaga often employs aerial shots, especially when the two protagonists are driving from crime scene to crime scene. The use of this angle has two effects. It shows the vastness of the southern country and the impossibility of finding Dorlang's killer in all that swamp and forest. However, it also undermines the importance of the case as the subjects are like ants on the screen, illustrating the insignificance of the matter and the little effect solving the case will have on the larger world. The Yellow King acts as a symbol for evil and death, but also a manifestation of the dark philosophies alluded to in the show. Fukunaga often uses yellow accents and lighting throughout the show to articulate the Yellow King's omnipresence. Similarly, the show uses the motif of a spiral as a symbol for the Yellow King's mark. The circle appears on crime scenes, tattooed on victims, and in Cole's visions. Fukunaga also uses the motif in much more subtle ways, such as in the production design and composition. The spiral is also another reference to nihilism and the concept of the eternal return, which Cole also mentions early on.
And you are reborn, but into the same life that you've always been born into. And how many times have we had this conversation, detectives? Well, who knows?
In fact, the very structure of the show is cyclical, starting with a bizarre murder, then proceeding with the detectives working the case, solving it, the two breaking up, and eventually coming back years later because of another bizarre murder, which they then proceed to try to solve. Even the show's ending alludes to the case going on past its supposed resolution. Moreover, the spirals also point to the notion of the abyss, something philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche discusses, in which he states, "Battle not with monsters, lest ye become a monster. And if you gaze into the abyss also gazes into you." Both Cole and Marty have moments where they're pushed to becoming the very monsters they seek to fight, which is what ultimately makes True Detective more than just a crime show with a philosophical subtext. While we think that the show is pushing a narrative of nihilism and pessimism, in reality, its larger themes are about good versus evil, and the dangers of ignoring the fact that evil does exist, not simply as an act of man, but also as a force of his nature. True Detective Season 1's approach of intertextuality, symbols and motifs, and deliberate cinematography and composition make it one of the best crime dramas around, and an excellent masterclass in cinematic storytelling.